Welcome back to Oneself. My name is Stephen Maher. With me today, with me always, is Adam Bartleman. Adam, thanks so much for joining me today, my friend.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Always good to connect.
Always good, always good. And what we're talking about today, folks, is kind of something we've chatted about in the past. It's your own path and the idea of perfection, right? And that was something that Adam and I often get bogged down in, right? Like these this idea that we have to be perfect, or for you, for the audience, right? It's like, to provide value for you, and that every conversation we have has to be, enlightening and awe-inspiring, and you walk away changed, and that's just not realistic, right? And it's like, obviously we want to be of use to anyone listening, and to ourselves too, right? Like, this is a process for ourselves. Adam and I just talking shit out as friends, and as just doing it in front of a camera, and that's great, and that's great, and I think it's helpful, and for me, but as Adam and I often say when we're recording this stuff, it's like, oh, like, just get the reps in, just get the reps in. Like, again, falling in with the process, not necessarily the end result. And I know what that feels like, because it's often paralyzing for me to even start, right? And because, the ego comes in, you want to be good at things, and if you start something and it's like you're not even good at it, it's like ego's like, oh, it's like you put it down. And
Mhm.
that's not good, right? Like, you have to fall in love with the process of doing things. And obviously it's like, if you hate something, it's like you don't have to, like, grin and bear it your way through it. But if something's difficult initially, that's okay. You can still push through. And Adam, yeah, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this, man, and I'll just love to, open it up to you, man, on this discussion of perfection, individual paths. What may work for you might not be for everybody else, and just figuring out our own journey in that process.
Yeah, man. I guess it's like, well, a lot of things to talk about there, but one that comes up is like, yeah, just holding up the mirror and questioning myself a lot. And for the context of this conversation, and like our weekly conversations we have here at podcast, it's like looking at it and just being like, what am I even doing? Like, who am I trying to who am I trying to be? Who am I trying to be here? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
how much am I focused on on the doing and rather than the being? Because yeah, as we've discussed previously, having a look at those perfectionist parts, which is attached to a lack of self love. Feeling like we have to be perfect in order to earn a seat at the table. And yeah, like in the context of this, like just very specifically to add value to people's lives, right? To add value to anyone listening and feeling like a responsibility, which ultimately is distorted. Like we're just having a conversation here, and I know like our sort of our why for creating this was like offering advice to the younger versions of ourselves, to avoid some of the pitfalls that we encountered, and which is all well and good, but like we got to recognize that ultimately it's just like most of the stuff in our world, in our in Western society, it's like it's pretty narcissistic, and which is fine because we're all going through this journey of discovering that we aren't separate individual selves and that we are all one. So it's like it's kind of a little bit paradoxical, I guess. Like it's narcissistic, and that we're offering advice to like what we would have wanted personally, but then also recognizing that our experiences are so common, and that what even though what often doesn't work for one, um, doesn't work for another or does work for another, right? Everything always holding the paradox, like understanding that even if we are trying to offer advice for our younger versions of ourselves, it's still going to be likely helpful for at least a couple people out there. So, um, But understanding, like, yeah, just kinda bringing it back to, like, what am I doing here? Like, really questioning myself in this or any other area of life, like, what is my motivation here? What is my, where am I coming from? Am I coming from a whole and centered place? Am I coming from a part that is still seeking validation from, like, another part of myself or from the external? Um, so, yeah, that's kinda like the journey as, at least, from this perspective at this moment is, like, seeing what the offering is and why, and just getting really honest about it because I think that that introspection, that opportunity that we have to reflect on ourselves and, in our conversations here to reflect, um, each other back to each other, it's a good opportunity to really kinda hone that process and not only what we're offering, but, like, for ourselves, and right? And this comes back to the whole, like, oneness conversation, and whether you wanna look at that from the ego perspective of, like, we're all just a bunch of narcissists on this planet, or understanding, like, oneness that, we are doing our best in order to uplift ourselves, and if that's all that these conversations are is just for, like, Steven and I's benefit, then, like, that's great too, because if we're improving ourselves in the most honest and authentic way that we can, then that ultimately is the best thing that we can do for the world as well, is, like, being our best selves. So whatever it is, no matter how we look at it, as long as we're, like, just trying to be as honest as we can with ourselves, then it's like it's getting, I think it's getting somewhere. Like, like, I think right now, maybe I'll change my mind tomorrow, but, but that's
Yeah.
okay. And yeah, so, like, holding that
Well,
paradox, I guess.
l- let me just let me just say this from my perspective, like looking at you, dude, where it's like so much love and admiration from my end towards you, bro. Because it's like, I look forward to these talks every week.
Yeah, me
I
too.
feel like I've gotten a lot out of them in terms of just trying to be better myself, and you are who you surround yourself with, right? And so it's like I want to be around people that are just trying, right? Just trying, to like
Yeah,
to just yeah, man, just get back in shape, just trying to just the act of trying, you know what I mean? And I know you
yeah.
are. And I know I am, like,
Mhm.
and it's not always perfect, and sometimes it's two steps forward and one step back, but like such is life, right? And but yeah, man, in terms of like being of value, and it's like, yeah, like you are to me, you know what I mean? Like, and it's not perfect, dude, and it doesn't have to be. I still get a ton out of it. You still make me think a ton. Um I hope other people feel the same. I think you're, really, really smart guy. Again, who's just trying, right? Just trying to figure out truth in the world,
Mm,
which is not easy. And yeah, brother, in terms of, this like this perfection path, um, yeah, 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 I love it. I love it. I
mm.
guess the
Eh,
bottom line of it.
yeah, thanks, man, and right back at you. And I was thinking the same thing. It's like I really just enjoy having the conversations, right? And that's the most important thing. Um, I look forward to it every week as well, and dive into some weird stuff and you know challenge ourselves to go off on all these tangents and then bring it back to something somewhat coherent, cohesive, hopefully, in a cohesive way. But yeah, man, it's a laugh, and I think always got to bring it back to that, like remembering that it's not so serious. Perfection is just an idea of the ego. um
Right.
and
And the process of this
yeah.
too.
Sorry.
Like just the process of this, like, not only getting
Mm,
better at having the conversations, because like I'm the one editing this stuff, so it's like, it's like I'll log off and I'll be like, oh, like I didn't, I'm in my head about it, right? But then I listen back to it while I'm editing, and I'm like, no, like that was, Like, I get what we were going for. You know what I mean? But it's just like the
Mm,
perception of in the reality moment versus like, you know, being an
mm,
audience member, being a spectator is like two completely different things, which as someone who's both in it and then editing it is really interesting for me in my perspective because like sometimes I'm in my head and it's just like then I listen back
yeah.
and edit it. And I was like, oh no, like I get what we were going for. And it's like, you know, you're just being too hard on yourself.
Yeah, man. That makes sense because it as we've talked about before, it's one thing to have a conversation, and it's one thing to have like a coaching call, that kind of thing. You know, slightly different kind of conversation, but when it's w- like understood through the perspective that we're it's kind of performative, like other people be listening to it, it's totally different, and it's just bizarre. And
Yeah.
that's where I think that perfectionist part, for me at least, gets a little activated, where I'm like, you know, I can't ramble on too much, go off on tangents, but you know, that's kind of my thing. I personally like go off on some pretty wild tangents,
Yeah.
and then bring it back. Man, that was, I don't know, that was a little out there and probably boring, but okay, let's keep refining. Um, but yeah, man, um, yeah, we were talking about different methods and techniques, and I guess that's kind of like what gets brought up for me a little bit personally when we're thinking about adding value and being like, you know, so perfectionistic, like if we're sharing a thought or sharing an idea, a technique with with someone, and just recognizing that this is where I thought about that Alan Watts talk and kind of related it to this, being that like whatever we're sharing doesn't necessarily work for others the way it has worked for us. And this is why we just kind of have random conversations about, well, not random, I shouldn't say that, but like, this is why we have kind of, you know, wide ranging conversations still on a fairly fixed topic, which is like, you know, personal growth, spirituality, you know, uh, men's work, improving the situation of the toxic masculine energy on this planet. Um, but recognizing that like this is where it comes up for me though is like I'm like, maybe that conversation just didn't add any value to anyone's day, because ultimately whatever works for one doesn't always work for another. Sometimes it does, you know, again, the sharing for our younger selves conversation.
Yeah.
But the the Alan Watts talk that I had mentioned was one in which he explained that whatever it is that works for you on your awakening journey, don't share it with other people, because that will like that you're contributing to the conditions in which someone might attach to the idea that you have shared, um, and then think it's going to work for them. And then, you know, if it doesn't, it's going to create some suffering there because they've had an attachment to an idea that didn't come to fruition. And so I'd heard that, I'd listened to a talk from Alan Watts. As I was saying, I'm not sure, like 6 months, maybe a year ago, where I heard that advice. It made sense intellectually. I was like, yeah, cool. You know, file that away. Didn't think about it anymore until yesterday, having had a deeper realization myself, where it's like, you know, whatever technique has worked for me is not necessarily going to work for someone else. As I said, you know, maybe I go to a one of the many things offered by the beautiful new age spirituality community, right? Like maybe I go to like a singing bowl, sound bowl meditation, and I'm laying on my yoga mat listening to crystal bowls being played, and I have a breakthrough moment, and I have some deep realization that really lightens me up. So then if I go home and tell everybody about it, oh my God, I was at this like sound bowl singing bowl ceremony, and I just like had this wild breakthrough, like then other people might go, "Oh, okay, now I have to go do that exact same thing in order to get those same results." Because, you know, years ago, that's how I approached things. I was like, I got to do all these things. I got to do as many things as I can to try and understand as much as I can, you know, very much in a doing mindset. I'm going to go out and gather things, a very narrow masculine mindset. Like, I got to do the things, I got to go out and gather it all. And just understanding that that's just not how it works, because ultimately all of these techniques, all of these practices, methodologies that are out there, all these offerings, it's not about the one thing. It's just whatever happens to be where we're at on our spiritual path, the the maturity of our soul. When we get to that point, whatever it is going to be that allows us to give ourselves the permission slip to drop the beliefs that were holding us back from recognizing that we are one with the divine. That's all it is, and we don't need any of these things. It's kind of like our conversation on plant medicine last time, where plant medicine ultimately, again, one perspective, and I have other perspectives on the same topic that, even might go against this a little bit, but like just from this moment and this perspective, understanding like plant medicine is there to teach you that you don't need it. So like you need plant medicine, just to put it very simply, you can be in a position where you need plant medicine to have your realization that then you don't need plant medicine, because the awareness that it turns you on to was there all along. You just didn't believe it.
Yeah.
You needed believe that you needed something external in order to open that up within your own awareness. But ultimately it wasn't about the medicine itself. And this, and when we get attached to the idea that it's the medicine, then that's when people get, down that path, like we talked about last time. And
Dude, I was talking to someone today,
distortion.
and they're like, he's like, "Oh, I'm doing like 16 ceremonies in like 2 weeks." I was like, "Jesus, jeez, dude, like, it's a lot, you know?"
Yeah. And again, and then but then at the same time, we can sit here and be like, yeah, that like we know from one level, like we know that doesn't work. I don't know if I want to say no, but we think that that doesn't work. But then also it's like, we're like, who are we to judge that guy's path? Because like that was
Right,
also, I was him, like, 6, 7 years ago. And
right,
and
right,
and I
right.
was spinning my wheels like crazy, and I wasn't really getting
Yeah.
anywhere, but ultimately that was part of my path too. So then now I can talk about it, and I can say, "Hey, that doesn't make a lot of sense," but I can't judge we can't judge anybody else's journey at the same time, which is
No, no, yeah,
awesome. There's always paradox. Like, we know that doesn't work, but we also like it, but it does work. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
but that's classic for where you're at, for the town you're in.
Yeah, I hope he's a facilitator too, not like just like doing it, he's
Okay.
so he might be just, helping others, So like you said though,
Yeah.
like, who are we to who am I to judge, you know?
Yeah, but yeah, sometimes, you feel it, you kinda know, but you don't,
Yeah,
you have the feeling. You're like, I know where this
yeah,
person's going. And like, and that's again, trusting your intuition, always going through the process of pairing the discernment with the intuition. But um yeah, not necessarily doesn't necessarily need to be spoken to that individual, because that might just confuse him and throw him off, and create um creating confusion for him is creating confusion and karma for yourself, right? Because if he's you and we're all part of the same field, then just allow him to go on his way and figure it out, because that's again, so be back to the Alan Watts discussion. That's ultimately what we have to do. Everybody has to figure it out for themselves in their own specific way. Figure it out, I should say, just discover, realize, because it's not like we have to really decode something. It's in truth, what it is we're seeking, we already are. So um creating these conditions where we think that, we have to be, searching something out, it just doesn't make sense, because, and again, whatever works for you, don't share it, because if if okay, I'm losing my choo choo. I
Train
started coming
of
off this
thought,
hill.
choo choo.
Traveling is best. Um,
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Whatever, you know, whatever works for you isn't the path for others necessarily, you know?
yeah, and when we if we share it like it's the thing to do. Oh, yeah, okay, that's what I was gonna say. We kind of we can kind of unconsciously, unintentionally misdirect people from the discovering of it for themselves. Like, well, not that they can ever not, like, not ultimately find it, but just slowing it down. And again, this is a whole like it comes down to like karma because we had an attachment to an idea that then maybe caused an attachment to an idea in someone else, which causes distortion and confusion, and therefore that's coming back on us. And we're not doing our best to inject clarity into the field and the experience of everyone else. We're actually, rather, because of our attachment to an idea, we're actually injecting distortion into the field, because we have to recognize that, yeah, like, it was never about the technique. Whatever the technique was that worked for us, whether you were doing um you know uh Wim Hof breathing and jumping in like ice baths, or doing, ayahuasca ceremonies, or doing some sort of somatic trauma healing therapy, whatever it was, it's getting, just like, as we discussed more in depth in the plant medicine episode, and that example last time, it's like whatever it was, it teaches you that it should be teaching you that you don't need it, because it's not like, okay, I've been doing ice baths and that's the thing that helped me break through. It's like, yeah, that's great. It might help regulate your nervous system and everything, but like that's not going to be the absolute be all and end all for every person on this planet to come to their own realizations about the truth of who they are. It's gonna happen. It's gonna be an individual path. So sharing it in such a way as like speaking in absolute terms, speaking in like definite terms, that this is what works. You got to do this many mushroom ceremonies, then you got to jump in cold water, then you got to like go on a silent retreat for 2 weeks. The silence retreat, like vipassana, like, and then that's the formula to like wake up, because that's just not how it works. And I know I definitely used to hold some kind of belief in my subconscious, even though I kind of intellectually understood that didn't really make sense. There was still a part of my subconscious that believed, like, no, if I do the right things, if I am perfect enough, if I am a good enough of a boy, then I will get what I'm looking for. And I I believe, just intuitively, I feel like that's still a common experience. That's a very common experience, because that's what I've encountered in places like that, the town where you're at is. And I know that like some of our unique individual experiences aren't so unique, that we go through a lot of the same things, because whether in conversation or overhearing or just observing the behavior of others, it's like, yeah, that they're doing the same thing I used to do. I can see it like plain as day. Um, but yeah, man, recognizing that it's like it is just, and it's like excited to that part of the ego. I think it was a little frustrating, because like the ego wants to hear the formula though for like what works, and go out and do the things, and vacation in the right spots, and like go into the right trance, and do the right workshop, and to figure it all out. But ultimately the truth is so much better and so much more beautiful, that it's like it's going to be individual, it's going to be unique, and it's going to be it's going to be magical, because like it's so much more exciting that way, if it's a unique path. Like, why would I want it to be? Why would I want, and I'm just going to kind of ask myself a question there and then answer it. Like, why would I want it to be formulaic? And like, for me at least, the answer to that would be because the ego is living in separation consciousness, and is in fear, and is thinking that like maybe we're not gonna reach the finish line, so to speak. That's like not the best language for it, but like maybe we're not going to get there, and like that's impossible. So it's like an inherently not trust, like a not a trusting kind of take. But um, once the trust is found, once that relaxation and surrender can be like embodied a bit more, then relaxing into that truth is so much better, because why would I want it to be predictable? It takes away the magic of it, and that's not the nature of it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And I think especially when a bunch of people are doing the same thing,
Mm.
It's I mean, I apply that to so many areas of my life. Like if you have like so many groups of people thinking the same way, doing the same thing, it's probably time to like switch it up. Or recognize that like that's okay, like that's where the herd is going, and I hate when people,
Yeah.
oh, like sheep, like that's not what the language I'm trying to use.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
that like humans inherently are very good at following pathways. We love paths, it's like, anytime, you're walking in a park or something, you see that people have created a shorter way to get from point A to point B, or like on a college campus, or, it's like that
Yeah.
happens all the time. It's just like we just follow paths. Like we like when people lay out the framework for us to follow. We like blueprints. We like directions. It's just like this
Yeah.
human thing. And
Feels safe.
it feels safe. It feels safe. And like it feels like you have some sort of control, and well, someone else did it, so it must be okay or the right way to do it because I don't have any fucking answers. I you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And so
exactly.
it's like, that person kind of looks like they know what they're doing. So I guess I'll follow that guy or girl or gal or, whatever. But, you know,
That guy has enough sacred geometry tattoos, he must know what he's talking about.
yeah, dude. Yeah. Can I tell you something funny, dude, too? Because, like, again, yeah, the place where I'm at, right? Where it's like people sometimes get bit by scorpions here. And
Yeah.
And so apparently it's like, like obviously it hurts, but apparently it's kind of like euphoric too at the same time. And I was just like
Oh,
joking
no.
around, and I was like, oh bro, like we gotta start collecting these scorpions, man, and like sell a program, you know, somatic
Yeah.
scorpion bite healing or some shit,
Yeah.
so 100, you start selling it for whatever package we want to give, but
Yeah.
obviously don't do that. I'm just joking.
Yeah.
But that's the point though, is that it's like, you know, there is no set path for you, right? And that's the work
Mhm.
of the individual, is figuring out what is best for you, And especially for me when it comes to like meditation or journaling, it's like I know, or like you said, like cold plunge, like Wim Hof stuff. It's like not only do I like
Mm.
that stuff because it's just like I don't want to do it, and like then to do it anyways. Again, it's like building the mental rep of like just being like
Yeah.
fuck you, just do it,
Yeah.
And so it's like I like that about it, right? And or like the sauna. It's just like like this, sitting in a sauna for 30 minutes is tough, right? And but I know it's good for me, and I like to sweat it out. I just like to sweat too. Like if I'm being honest, so
Mm.
it's like recognizing that those are things I like to do, and not to like overdo them, either. But it's just like that. Like that's my path, And yes, we've had our plant medicine experiences, and it's like, do I need to, like you said, like go into the jungle and for like a month? It's like no, like I don't think I need to do that. I think the work is daily, and
Yeah.
it's more integration, like we talked about in the last episode, where it's just like the hard, slow, boring work that is fast too, though, because it's like as time passes by, it's like man, like it's like I got some momentum, and just like
Yeah.
not messing up, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
Not messing up, but it's like you know, it's not like or it's just like I feel like I have forward progress, just in terms of where I'm trying to get at, my highest potential, right? Like, like reaching what I think I'm capable of, and
Yeah.
trying to meet that person, right? And again, might always fall short, and I know, perfection, but it's just like it's fun to chase that idea too of like again falling in love with those processes, not necessarily the idea of perfection, but it's like I think I know what I'm capable of as well, and to be a force for good. And is that like ego and like you said, like narcissism, or yeah, probably bits of that thrown in there. But
Mm.
when I see so much of the other thing, right, which is like evil and greed and corruption and wrongdoing and all that stuff rampant up on the earth, it's like, well, I gotta, you know, I want to be formidable too, but like formidable in a way that helps people, and
Mhm.
so that's mastering all these things that like are not mastering, but like trying to get a grip on all these things, my emotions, right? There's this story today of this guy for the second time like threatening my friend in town, and she's a woman, and So it's like that's scary when you have like this big guy, violent guy, not in control of his emotions, and it's like that's a scary thing, to see, a full grown man, having temper tantrums with the strength and capability of a grown man, right? But having these childlike temper tantrums, right? That's how violence happens. That's how it's a recipe for disaster. So just as an example of like what not mastering yourself can lead to, like, right? And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man, and how that, yeah, that distorted masculine energy, that potentially can have gotten there because of a belief that that's, like, the right way to express it, which is just crazy. But, yeah, man, approaching these things with, like, the intuition and discernment, like, understanding, recognizing the patterns and seeing, yeah, seeing what everyone's doing, and I liked your point about, I liked your point about, seeing whatever the group is doing and probably, okay, maybe it's time to go in the opposite direction because, like from my perspective, that would be essentially like what Alan Watts was talking about. Like somebody shares something that worked, and like now not only has someone else believed it and is trying to do it, now a lot of people are doing it. And now like there's a culture that's built out of it. And one of my favorite Terrence McKenna quotes is culture is not your friend, being that like it leads you away from personal realization. This is the same. This is like this is kind of like the foundation of religion as well, right? Like there's an esoteric tradition. Like let's use like Christianity as an example. There's the esoteric mystical tradition of like the teachings that Jesus was actually sharing. And then there's the distorted version where they, put him on a pedestal and said you just have to worship this guy and not actually listen to his teachings. Um, but the truth of the matter being that like it was about like gnosis, like inner knowing, inner experience. And like here's some practices that can help you find that yourself. Here's some ways you can live that will help you find that yourself. But then too many people were like, no, we have to do these things that are so specific and less esoteric, less vague, less mystical, because we want to have these nailed down practices. So you got to go to this whatever. You got to go to this building on Sunday. You got to drink. You got to eat a cracker and drink some wine and like, not understand. Like all this stuff. It's just like
Yeah, it's so funny when you put
it.
it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, because it's like that was all symbolic, right? It was like drink of the blood is like you like embody the awareness, embody the energy, right? It's not like literally drink blood. But anyway, um, yeah, it's like when people get attached to the belief that there's a method that's going to work, a technique that's going to work, and then that just ends up in the distorted mess that is our planet today, right? Like Christianity, just using that example again, biggest religion on the planet, I believe, and most of which is really like a grand departure from the actual teachings, uh, completely twisted up and confused. Um, and to call that out would get you pilloried in most situations by those people who would consider themselves Christians. But yeah, it's funny. It's like what happens when we follow the pattern and like follow what we think someone else is doing, and especially if they've got a good marketing strategy and they've got some money behind them, people would just start doing it, right? You get like down in those, go down to Central America, for example, and check out all the funky hippie spots and like all the spiritual new age kind of communities, and it's like yeah, everybody's doing kind of the same thing, right? Like you can see the patterns everywhere, and like the
Yeah.
ego is great at at pattern recognition and then adhering to those patterns for safety, because the ego is the separate sense of self that believes itself to be, attached to the body identity, and like, so it's all about survival mode, survival mechanisms, and like, yeah, you see the patterns, right? Like, like I lump myself in there. I got the sacred geometry tattoos, and like,
Yeah, bro.
like, totally admit everybody's wearing beads and flowy clothes, and it's like, cool, that's fantastic. Like, if you like those things, then by all means, like, get tatted up and get some like some Thai fisherman pants and whatever, and walk around barefoot. But like, don't do it because you think you have to, or that like it's gonna get you something. Because I mean, I saw that just all too often. Like, the people who, you know, are, you can see from a mile away, are donning the garb of like what the spiritual community is, you know is it's like essentially dictated they must wear to belong.
Yeah, there's
And
a
then
uniform.
once you get, yeah, the uniform, and then once you get a little closer, it's like, oh my, like, this is like some of the most toxic behavior. This is one of the most toxic communities I've ever come in contact with in my life. And I used to work in emergency services. Like, this is the addiction, the abuse, like, it's scary. And it's like, boy,
Yeah,
okay, the um the
yeah.
wolf in
It's
sheep's
crazy.
clothing kind of thing, like, so it's like, uh yeah, again, always is it coming, for that specific part of the conversation, like, coming to that place of understanding, like, do all the things, by all means, like, do whatever floats your boat, but like, get straight with yourself on like what the intention is, what the energy is behind it. Because
Yeah,
if we're doing stuff because we think we have to, then like we're just off the mark, which again was like, as I said, using my own example in the past, was like, I think I got to try all these different like healing modalities and this, and like, I got to do, like, for example, I got to do all the trauma therapy. I got to read all the books. And like, at a certain point, like, that does reach an end, because there's, just to build on that a little bit, the, one of the phrases that you'll hear in that, like, in those spiritual communities, those trauma healing communities, is like, well, the healing never stops. Like, it's never stops. And it's like, no, that's bullshit. That it does stop, because if you adhere to an identity in which you're traumatized and you're always uncovering new forms and layers of trauma, well, then, like, guess that's all you're ever going to see, because that's what you're focused on. So that is not true. And like, the healing does stop. Our growth, sure, we can say our growth never stops, but like, identifying ourselves as like these traumatized
a
people,
victim or yeah,
victim mentality, that has to be dropped at some point, because you realize, once we just even begin to scratch the surface of like understanding oneness and karma and how that all plays together, it's like, well, I've never been victimized, because like, whoever I considered to be victimizing me in the past was me. And those that I have hurt, like, they're me too, and it's all one. And like, and what I truly am and what everyone truly is can't be hurt. So that whole script falls apart. But we understand that sort of like, uh modern psychology, trauma healing kind of school of thought is not that far off, like, the like modern medical establishment, which I think, my personal belief is like, we're just, uh creating repeat customers in a like slightly different way. But yeah, it's understanding that like, this stuff, like, we need to be able to think for ourselves, and the to be able to come from the perspective that like the energy behind with whatever we're doing is the most important thing. Is if we're just trying to fit in, if we're just trying to follow the script and um just live what we've heard other people say, or try and copy the examples of others, then we're gonna get caught in those loops. We're gonna hit plateaus on our journey. And ultimately, like, it's so simple. Like, it just gets simple. The more and more simple, the more we look at it. Like, it's just about owning the identity of who we really are. It's like, we're not wounded. We don't need to do all these crazy techniques and practices. We don't need to We don't need to buy the right things or have the right crystals in our houses. We like you don't like again, do those things if you enjoy that. If that is the
Yeah.
aesthetic in your I was like
I
beautiful. I
like
mean,
rocks,
I
man,
dig it
you
too.
know?
I love it. No, I love it too. I I like rocks. Yeah.
I like some cool rocks,
Absolutely.
don't get it twisted, you know?
Yeah,
Is
man.
that, you
Me
know?
too. 100%.
Yeah, you
I
know?
do as well. And like it's not like it doesn't necessarily have to be a red flag, but it often is. And not a red
Right.
flag, like it's somebody's doing something wrong. But you know what I mean? Like
No, I'm not
it,
saying I'm not like, you know, the rocks will fix me, you know what I mean? Like, that work is
yeah,
me,
yeah, yeah.
dude, you know what I mean? You know? I
Exactly.
think they're
You know,
cool to look at, you know? It's like a
oh
kid collecting
yeah, me too.
treasure bottle caps or something.
Yeah, 100%. And then like just from a slightly different perspective, like the patterns are like from a light place also hilarious to or from like a positive place are also like light and funny to look at
Yeah.
too, because when we are coming from even like a more pure self-motivated self-love place, and like and approaching these things from a good energy of like not being attached to like needing a certain outcome, having any expectation, like the patterns are still there. Like we still like they're still pretty observable. I mean, like, to use myself as an example, I used to have a couple of buddies at my old job that were like would like kind of like uh lovingly make fun of me as I went on my kind of path of like moving away from being like the hard drinking like firefighter guy to like lightening up. And like I remember one time I was slacklining with some friends in the park, and like and I was telling some guys at work, and then one guy was like, "Oh yeah, slacklining, of course you were." Like, yeah, yeah, it's kind of the way it goes. Like these patterns are there, and it's funny. And like
Yeah.
the different things that people get into along the path.
One thing for this from this community too though, dude, like you said the slacklining, like I do love that like people get into their bodies. Like I do see that, you know,
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
various you know, yoga or aerial
acro
acrobatics
yoga.
or
Yeah,
whatever, acro any you know, any of that stuff, dude. I'm like I'm like I do like that because it's like I do think
yeah,
people need to get more in tune with their bodies and you know work in their bodies and you know progress that way and like you know it's the body aspect of the mind body spirit like you know getting stronger and like
yeah.
working on a skill and so it's like that for sure I'm like in terms of like a observation right observing these patterns I'm like that is cool and I do agree with that and I think more people you know hit the gym or whatever it is going for a walk even I'm like but just like getting your body
Totally.
is like so powerful.
Yeah, totally. And like while we're kind of
So
like
slackline
here,
all
you
you
know,
want, dude.
yeah, oh yeah. While we're here, like making like kind of making fun of the new age spiritual community, and like yeah, poking fun at it, like highlighting some like red flags along that path. It's like the things themselves aren't bad. Again, I'm saying like the techniques. It's not like techniques are bad, don't do them. Like that's not like what I'm saying here, it's just not being attached to them. By all means, go do a cold. I love cold plunges. Like I'm all about
Yeah,
that. If
yeah,
somebody's offering a singing bowl meditation, yeah, I'm gonna go. It's super relaxing. But I'm not gonna go tell people,
yeah,
like, hey, you're gonna have a spiritual awakening when you go do this. Even though I might
yeah,
have had that, I'm not gonna go tell people I had a spiritual awakening doing that because I don't want to create an attachment for someone else. But by all means, go do that. Dude, slacklining is amazing. It's like one of the most meditative things I've ever done. It's like just so focused and like present. It's just beautiful. But yeah, I'm not gonna say you have to do that in order to like fit in with this
yeah,
community. And because then you see that developing in the culture too. You see somebody show up like I went to an ecstatic dance once there, and those things are always like no alcohol, no substances at all, right? Which is awesome. Like I love that. um
yep,
but buddy I was with like wasn't aware of that, and he had brought a beer with him because he was newer to that scene, and he had a beer with him, and he was standing off to the side, and he cracked it, and like the disapproving like hateful looks from all of this like spiritual looking people were like so funny. I'm like, man, like clearly, and I was kind of like, oh, okay. And I just observed it. Like we were kind of Yeah, like I knew him and I just saw it. I'm like, I don't care. Like he figured it out pretty quick upon like looking around and like and seeing the
Yeah.
reaction that he was getting. And but that's all it needed. Like it was funny because like the spiritual community, everyone was being kind of like nasty and judgmental to him. And it's like, what does this guy need? What does this guy really need? He just needs some love. Just go talk to him and be like, hey man, yeah, we actually, like, you're not supposed to bring beer in here, it's just like a different energy, like, just approach it lovingly, but that's not kinda how it was received. Um, because yeah, anyway, like because those cultures develop, it's like, "You gotta do this to fit in now," and it's like, "Well, that's not very spiritual, you gotta be exactly like everybody else." These all these nonconformists are really conforming to each other. You know, so it's just it's one of
Yeah.
those things. It's just we always gotta be looking at ourselves, man, like, because our attachments, like, our ego just grabs hold, like, again and again, though, it just gets more and more subtle. We just gotta be really honest with ourselves, like, really always check in, look in the mirror, and be like, "Okay, what's going on here?" Because odds are it's creeping in a slightly different way. So, anyway, man, yeah, yeah, it's the techniques themselves aren't bad, like the clothing, the jewelry, the tattoos, like none of these things are bad themselves. Like if you like those things, then like fill your boots, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, bro,
just
I've been doing
recognizing
yoga
it's all about the attachment.
since I was 14, you know? Like, I fucking
Yeah,
love yoga, you know? For my
yeah,
body,
man,
for
me
my
too.
mind, it's like
Feel
active body
amazing.
meditation. Yeah, bro. Like, it's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
you know, when I really get into a yoga practice, it's like, especially as we're getting older, brother, like, it's like, if there's, you know,
Mm,
if I drop everything else, if I drop my cardio, my weight training, it's like I would keep yoga there
mm,
before I drop anything else, you know, just
yeah,
because I think
so,
it's all encompassing. You know what I mean? It's the mobility, it's the active recovery, while it's the strength, and it's the mindful stuff, you know, the meditation and the
yeah,
breath work. It's just like, it's so powerful. And it's like, yeah, like I love yoga.
yeah.
You
So you're
know
talking
what I
like
mean?
hatha yoga?
I mean, what I was kind of doing was like the power vinyasa flow stuff, just because it's like,
Oh, okay, okay,
man, when I really
okay.
get into like when I get into that sort of stuff, it's like it just flies by. Or like the hot yoga too, dude. Like, you know, when they do like, I mean,
Mm,
there's you know, I'm always moving and grooving, so I'm doing all types of stuff, you know, all types of classes. It's not like I'm doing like one set
mm,
class, you know, but I definitely prefer like a
yeah,
hotter, more strength based, little faster paced class. Although I love the
cool.
slower paces too, because it's like you can really sit in and like really like breathe into that stuff and really, really, you know, if you're in a pigeon for 2 minutes, it's like you're gonna some stuff is
Mm,
gonna come up, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and
for real.
you
Yeah,
know, man. So it's just like, you know, I like the slower classes too. It's like I'm all over the place with it. But again, it's like the getting in your body stuff is great because it also disciplines the mind, you know, and it like and you know, so it's again, like you said, like the techniques are great. But it's like it's not like it's my whole personality. If anything,
yeah,
too, dude, here, it's like it's so funny because it's like I'm not that, you know, but I am. Like it's like one foot in, one foot out, you know, and
mm,
you know, or it's so it's just kind of like funny. It's just kind of funny, like
yeah,
being here and yeah, like wanting to contribute music, right? It's like I know there's like so many musicians around here. And like I met a kid the other night, you know, and he's got like a studio and like he just seemed like really chill. So it's like I want to go see him, you know, at some point. And you know, it's like I love those little connections, right? But
mhm,
obviously, yeah, it's like, you know, I'm aware or like an active observer of what's going
yeah,
on too. I was talking to a guy like you know, I was playing a show the other night on Christmas Eve and a guy was like, you know, like you know, travelers passing through and he's like, "What the fuck is the deal with this place?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, you know, it's just kind of, you know, it's an interesting place, you know, it's an interesting place for
yeah,
sure." But you know, yeah, I totally get it. I totally get it. Again, the culture, right? Like you said, like Terrence McKenna, you said, right? It's like, you
yeah,
know, the culture isn't necessarily your friend, right? You know, and like,
mhm,
but like the techniques can be useful to the individual, right?
yeah,
And there's this like George Carlin quote that always sticks with me. He's like, I love the individual, right? He's like, I can see the
mm,
universe in their eyes. It's like when people start getting into groups, that's when it starts to freak me out, or like I get
yeah,
scared.
yeah, oh my
It's like
god,
when people
yeah,
start forming the groups, it's like be aware, you know what I mean? But like that for
yeah,
the individual, and again, if you know, if anything else, you, me, you know, anyone listening, it's like, but again, we're all one. But it's like finding that thing. that works best for
Mhm.
you, right? And we've illustrated if it's slackline, if it's yoga, the cold plunge stuff. It's like all that stuff, man. It's like that's what works for me and you, and
Yeah.
so to anyone listening, find try that stuff, find out what works.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? It's, it's important to just understand that, like, there's not one thing that's gonna work
No,
for just one thing for one person or for any group, and, like, understanding that we gotta embrace the paradox, like, we really have to embrace it because we're all one, but then we're also on completely unique individual journeys, and we have to be able to hold that, to not get lost in this stuff, to think that we're, we're doing the best for, realizing the truth of ourselves while, conforming, like, while the ego's sneaking in and kind of pushing us to conform with something, or not. And it's just, yeah, it's important to recognize that I think it might have been Ram Dass saying something along the lines of, um, you should appear kind of to contradict yourself to those closest to you. And that's a rough, paraphrasing, but it was something along those lines, like, those closest to you should see, if you're growing fast, you're gonna be changing, like, from one week to the next, and you should, appear to contradict yourself sometimes, and that's okay, and, like, and live with that, and be happy and accept yourself and understand that, and also hold the awareness and acceptance of people seeing you that way, and, like, not getting mad at somebody for calling you out for saying something that's a little contradictory to what you said the week before, but just, like, holding it and understanding all of it and seeing why your viewpoint has changed, seeing why it would appear that way to an outside observer, even though you may be able to understand it and see the connections, knowing that somebody else maybe doesn't understand what you're talking about, and that, again, from the outside, it seems a little confusing, and holding all of it, and not allowing that to hold you back, not allowing that to create any more separation between you and that person who's not understanding you, just holding it all, accepting it all, accepting yourself, and knowing that you will change, and that you will shift perspectives, and sometimes, on any given topic, from one perspective, look, um, it might look like the right thing from one level of awareness, and then, you go up one level of awareness, it doesn't look right anymore, and back and forth, and so it goes.
hey y'all, my Wi-Fi cut out, so I have to do an intro just all by my lonesome. I hope that's okay. So if you like what you heard in episode 24 of Oneself, please like, comment, subscribe, support us in all the ways that are free. We really, really appreciate it, and engage with us if there's something you want to talk about, or have us explore more. Let us know. And thank you so much for listening.